Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and today's video is going to be a fun one. In today's video, we get to take a look at Shadow Gyarados with its lightning fast pacing, but this trainer is running an unsuspecting nuke move that is devastating opponents left, right, and center. These battles were submitted to the channel by a member of the community, Shift Treason, so many thanks for the battle submission. Now this trainer is running Hydro Pump on their Gyarados. Now it goes without saying, this is not a moveset you want to run if you're looking to gain elo, but these battles are absolutely electric. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches. And in game number 1, we're off to a nightmare start, leading Shadow Magnezone into Gastrodon. Safe switch into the Shadow Gyarados, answered with Corviknight. Corviknight will go for the Air Cutter as soon as they get it. Air Cutter, never a particularly strong attack, but the opponent does get the boost. Gyarados farms all the way up to the Hydro Pump, fully charging it. Do they respect it? They do not! One hit KO, down goes Corviknight, and out comes Guzzlord. Guzzlord will go for the Brutal Swing instantly. Brutal Swing will be knocking out the Gyarados. Gyarados didn't really have a move it could throw in that scenario anyway, and now in comes the Magnezone. You may notice this team has a theme, and that is that all of the Pokemon are running some pretty exciting nuke moves. Flash Cannon on the Magnezone, Future Sight on the Shadow Xatu, and now in comes Xatu looking to close out the game. Xatu has to respect the Brutal Swing as Xatu is incredibly frail. Xatu unable to get the farm down, and just like that, Xatu goes from 2 shields to 0 in a split second. In comes the Gastrodon, immediately answered with a Psyshock. Shadow Psyshock will connect, dealing devastating damage. Switch Clock not yet available. This Psyshock will be burning the final shield. A catch will be needed, and unfortunately, it's not going to happen. The opponent undertaps the Water Pulse, KOing the Xatu. In comes Magnezone. It cannot survive the Mud Slap, and unfortunately, that's going to be a Game 1 defeat. Hopping into game number 2, and unfortunately the leads are not getting much better, leading Shadow Magnezone into Giratina Altered. Shadow Giratina will take quite a lot of damage from the Wild Charge, and then Shift can look to pivot out. Wild Charge lands, in comes Shadow Gyarados, and the opponent is going to respond with another Corviknight. We saw what happened in the last Corviknight. It did not go well for them. Corviknight goes for the Air Cutter, and like last game, they do get the boost. But Corviknight never really has an incentive to shield the first move, which means Hydro Pump will land once again, and they get KO'd. In comes Empoleon. Empoleon is going to be resisting everything that this Gyarados can throw, but obviously the opponent does not know that there's no crunch on this Gyarados. In comes Xatu. Xatu will get absolutely rocked by a Hydro Cannon. Xatu gets to the Psyshock. Opponents should know that they fully wall the moveset, so they are going to be no shielding. The biggest issue now for the opponent is just their lack of health. They have almost no health on the Giratina, but just enough to get a farm down. Giratina, everything it throws should be walled here. It's Dragon Claw and Ancient Power. Dragon Claw is going to be no shielded. In comes Empoleon. We did see that Volt Switch go through. Volt Switch is easily KOing. They throw a Drill Peck BM, and that's a good game. Hopping into the next match, Shadow Magnezone leading into Credilli. This matchup is a lot less good for Magnezone than one might think because Credilli is absolutely overpowered. Credilli will be able to outpace the opponent over farming so much for absolutely no reason. They have close to 100 energy. They get one shot by a Flash Cannon, and it's all going wrong. In comes Dusclops, answered with the Shadow Gyarados. Shadow Gyarados will be no shielding. Opponent does big damage with the Shadow Punch. In comes Galarian Moltres. And unfortunately, Gyarados doesn't commit to the Hydro Pump. I'm confident they could have got there. Instead, gonna settle for the back-to-back Aqua Tails. Now, don't get me wrong. Aqua Tail does still do quite a decent amount of damage, but I'm here for the Hydro Pumps. In comes Magnezone. The opponent, they're in such a rough spot because they threw away close to 100 energy on that Credilli. In comes Xatu, but Xatu is going to get absolutely shredded by Shadow Punch. So this game is by no means over. The Shadow Punch does get shielded. Xatu going for the Psyshock, unfortunately throwing on alignment, giving a free Hex to the Dusclops. Dusclops no shields, and that will end the game, as Dusclops does not have the back-to-back moves loaded. In comes Magnezone. Magnezone Volt switches down, and is able to secure the win. We move to the next match. Shadow Magnezone now going to be greeted with a Sableye on the lead. This matchup will be uncomfortable because Sableye will have a pacing advantage. Sableye going for the foul play as soon as they get it. Magnezone opting to no shield and will get absolutely rocked. In comes Shadow Gyarados. Shadow Gyarados answered with Credilli. Oh my goodness. Credilli, they have incentive to shield the first because they are a Rock Tomb user. Hydro Pump is gonna land. They disrespect it and they just get one shot. Credillis are just not shielding. And that's the whole point of Credilli is you shield, you debuff, and then you just win by debuffing your opponent into oblivion. But opponents keep no shielding their Credillis, and we're finding out why that is a bad idea. Aqua Tail picks up the knockout. In the back is Galarian Corsola, and this is going to be a really tricky game. Corsola will have quite a bit of energy. There is a wild charge loaded on that Magnezone. Xatu has to get to the future sight. Opponent lets them get there, and now they are in an impossible endgame. They can shield the future sight, but then there's a Shadow Wild Charge locked and loaded. Shadow Wild Charge knocks out Galarian Corsola, and that's going to be yet another win. I believe that's now 3-1 in the set, looking for the 4-1 set. Shadow Magnezone into Dunsparce. This is a nightmare Pokemon for this team to see. Dunsparce beats this entire team. Magnezone is going to wait, hoping for a Drill Run catch, but the opponent reacted in time. That's going to be a Rock Slide, and Gyarados almost gets one shot. Gyarados goes for the Aqua Tail. Opponent is going to make a catch onto Azumarill, and this matchup is just going from bad to worse, as Azumarill will immediately be answered with the Magnezone. Magnezone at the back-to-back Wild Charges, but how do you get rid of that Dunsparce? Wild Charge lands, Magnezone now heavily debuffed. In comes a Talonflame. I don't even want to know how much damage that Incinerate just did. It almost picked up the full knockout. In comes Xatu, and unfortunately if they have Flame Charge, everything's getting farmed down. They do not, but there's that Dunsparce. There was hope for a second. They didn't have Flame Charge, but there's still that Dunsparce, and there's no way to get rid of the Dunsparce. A Shadow Psyshock just simply will not KO from this health range. Psyshock shielded up by the Dunsparce, and Shift realized it. The Psyshock just cannot KO from that range. Rock Slide picks up the knockout. In comes Magnezone, and unfortunately, that was basically as bad of a matchup for this team as you could get. And Dunsparce, it's a Pokemon that I've used myself recently. I think it's actually pretty strong in this meta, and unfortunately we see why in that game number 5. Dream lead in the next match, Shadow Magnezone into Rufflet. Rufflet safe switches into a Gastrodon, and out comes Gyarados. Gyarados takes massive damage from Body Slam. Gyarados, it can output an incredible amount of damage, but it's very frail. Gyarados at the back-to-back Aqua Tails. The Gastrodon is never going to be shielding here, so the Gastrodon will no shield, but Gyarados can throw the back-to-back Aqua Tails to deny that energy and win switch advantage. In comes Rufflet. Rufflet looking for a farm down, but Gyarados says no, leaving the parting gift of an Aqua Tail, and that does devastating damage to the Rufflet. Rufflet does not have a coverage move for Magnezone. In the back is Toedscruel, and they're running a double Mud Slap team. Oh, I'm so happy we get to watch double Mud Slap lose. They no shield the Psyshock, they know there's no hope, and that's gonna be a win. Hopping into the next match, Shadow Magnezone going to be greeted with a Wigglytuff. A pretty good matchup, but charms will still add up. Out comes that ever-problematic Dunsparce. Perfect charge attack timing from the Magnezone as it takes advantage of the one-turn switch to force the shield. Trying to get the catch onto the Gyarados, but the opponent is too patient. They recognize the Volt Switch isn't coming through. They just keep farming. It would be a really flashy play if it worked, but unfortunately the opponent stayed calm and they were able to land the Rock Slide on the Flying type. There's a lot of energy on this Dunsparce. In comes the Magnezone. Magnezone will be forced to shield and farm down, but my worry is that this team is more often than not usually a Marowak in the back. And obviously if it's a Marowak, then there's not really a path forward in this game. Magnezone does get the farm down. Is it the Marowak? It is. In comes Xatu. Xatu answered with the Wigglytuff. Honestly, I would have loved to see a commit to the future sight there because I think they're going to be no shielding. Psyshock does do big damage, but unfortunately, it's not enough to take the KO. Wigglytuff gets to the Swift, down goes Xatu, and Magnezone just cannot win. Even if the Flash Cannon lands, it will not be enough damage to one-shot a Marowak. Going for the Flash Cannon, opponent puts up the shield. farms down, and unfortunately that game will end in defeat. Dunsparce is proven to be a pretty tricky Pokemon for this line, and oh my goodness, Shadow Magnezone into Swalot in the next game. I believe it was about a year ago that Swalot absolutely dominated a few regionals, but unfortunately, it's tough to run Swalot in this meta. Ice Beam lands, doing some pretty significant damage. Opponent switches, oh no, into a Malamar. Do they respect it? They do not. Full one-hit KO with the Hydro Pump, and back in comes Swalot. Just like that, switch advantage has been secured. Sludge takes the knockout. In comes Xatu. Xatu trying to get to the Psyshock there. Able to overfarm by 1 as well to leave with a little bit of residual energy in case the opponent no shields. But they put up the shield. They recognize they want damage on the Swalot, but unless they land a charge attack, they have no ability to do so. Xatu now just going to go for the Psyshock immediately, trying to preserve as much HP as possible. Opponent puts up the final shield. In comes the Magnezone. It's a Pangoro in the back, and it's not going to be here for long as Wild Charge. That's going to be a one-hit KO. Down goes Pangoro. Look at the mud shots from the Swalot, but they just don't have enough health. They get Volt Switch down, and they will lose that game. Bad leads return in the next match. Shadow Magnezone into Marowak. It is the non-Shadow Marowak. Save switch Gyarados. Out comes Dunsparce. And unfortunately, this Pokemon is just a wrecking ball into this team. Aqua Tail does get shielded, and Gyarados decides to shield back. Now, this is a pretty big risk, because even though Gyarados will be able to protect itself from the rock slides, the rollouts just hit for incredible damage. And if all shields go down, then suddenly you're in danger of getting knocked out with the Xatu from a rock slide from the Marowak. So in comes the Magnezone. Magnezone will have to put up the final shield, but no, not if you get the Drill Run catch onto the Xatu. So Xatu catching the Drill Run where it's going to be double resisted. Opponent sends in the Marowak. How is this their best answer to a flying type? Rock Slide would easily knock out the Xatu, so Xatu is forced to put up the shield. These pecks are getting the Marowak closer and closer to Shadow Psyshock range. Xatu has to hope that one peck at a Psyshock will be enough to knock out. This is what this game will come down to. Psyshock into the Marowak, picks up the knockout in the back. It's Guzzlord, and in comes Magnezone. Magnezone gets to the Shadow Flash Cannon. This will be big neutral damage onto that Guzzlord, picking up the one-hit KO. Dunsparce gets farmed down, and this team finally gets its revenge on Dunsparce. Hopping into the next match, oh, that is instantly losing, leading into a Unova Stunfisk with this team, and yeah, you probably won't even see the third. Oh my goodness, this is the actual worst case scenario. Opponent does end up switching out, but realistically, they could have stayed in and just 1v3'd with the Stunfisk. If we thought Dunsparce was bad, this is a whole new level of bad. Gyarados going for the Aqua Tail. Furret no shields because they know it does not KO. And yeah, whether you shield or not, the game is already over. There's a Stunfisk that has 2 shields. Stunfisk is not going to be threatened by anything. In comes Xatu. Xatu waited the turn to try and catch a Mud Bomb. Mud Bomb does get caught onto the Xatu, but unfortunately the Stunfisk is just too far ahead. Stunfisk is going to grab the final shield with the discharge, and now they're going to switch out, and their final Pokemon is revealed to be Dartrix. Maybe they're going to let this go. Future Sight picks up the one-shot. Unfortunately, the game is still lost, but I'm just happy we got to see a Future Sight land. We will take the moral victories when you lead Magnezone Double Flyer into a team that has a Stunfisk. So here's the Mud Bomb. Down goes the Magnezone. In comes Xatu. Xatu gets farmed out as well. Man, that was a brutal, brutal game. Hopping into the final match, leading Shadow Magnezone into Dedenne. Dedenne farming up quite a lot of energy. They built up to the play rough. Magnezone is going to be no shield in the Parabolic Charge. Magnezone farming up to the back-to-back Wild Charges. An interesting choice, not opting for the Flash Cannon. Wild Charge connects on the Charge Stack priority tie, so a Flash Cannon definitely would have picked up the knockout. Parabolic Charge does get shielded. In comes Xatu. Xatu gets that farm down and exits up a lot of energy, but down a shield. Hopefully that was the opponent's only counter to Flyers, but instead they're going to bring in Florges. Florges, an incredible addition to the Great League meta. More often than not, Florges are going to be running Chilling Water and Trailblaze. Moonblast offers a lot of damage, but Trailblaze allows a really consistent play into the Mud Slappers like Gastrodon. Oh my, Xatu, it's debuffed, but it's going for the Future Sight. Future Sight is gonna land, picking up the KO, and it's Shadow Gyarados versus Shadow Gyarados in the end game. In comes Gyarados. Gyarados going to be hit with a crunch. Can Shadow Gyarados survive? Gyarados just needs to be able to force the shield. Gyarados barely hangs on even despite the crunch debuff, getting to this Aqua Tail. Aqua Tail forces the shield, and there's the combo play with the Magnezone. Magnezone, Wild Charge, that is massive overkill, knocking out the Gyarados, and that is a good game. All in all, these were some highly entertaining battles, so many thanks to Shift for sending them in. As I mentioned at the start, it goes without saying, this is absolutely not a team that is recommended if you're looking to climb Elo. This is more so a fun team. It's really weak to Dunsparce, it's really weak to Stunfisk, but it has nuke moves galore. I think of the 3 nukes that were on the team, Shadow Magnezone Flash Cannon, Shadow Xatu Future Sight, and Shadow Gyarados Hydro Pump, I think far and away my favorite was the Hydro Pump. Now I'm probably biased because the Hydro Pump landed so much more than any other nuke, but man, Gyarados was absolutely destroying Pokemon. The back-to-back Corviknights getting one shot, the Malamar getting one shot, the sheer damage, because Gyarados, it's all about the pacing. It gets the moves lightning fast, only 9 to the Aqua Tail, very quick to the crunch as well. So people are used to having to expend shields because of how many Aqua Tails it has. But normally they think, okay, at the very least, I can tank the first. And that mindset is what allowed all those Hydro Pumps to land. So very entertaining battles. Many thanks to Shift for sending them in. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoy watching content like this, please do consider leaving a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is sincerely appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.